Well, hey, you guys. Welcome back to my Flickers of Fear movie review series. So, I thought it was about time that I got around to talking about the legendary French filmmaker Jean Rollin. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that sort of right. Yeah, I only took French for 4 years. You know what I mean? And I still can't fucking pronounce it right. Sorry. I don't actually think I've ever covered him in this series, much to my eternal chagrin. But, I'm fixing it now, so it's okay. So he began his directing career back in the early 1960s, and kind of over time, mostly became known in the horror community specifically for his kind of dreamlike, very erotically charged movies. A lot of them were vampire movies, and a lot of them had lots and lots of girl-on-girl action. He later directed some porn, too, which won't be surprising to anyone who's seen his horror movies. So his ninth film is called Fascination, and it came out in 1979. It's generally regarded as one of his best movies, and probably the one that's best known to horror fans in the United States. It's an art house movie, for sure, so if you're looking for some kind of gory, fast-paced 70s sleaze, you should probably look elsewhere. Because Fascination is more like a very atmospheric, slow-moving kind of movie, has beautiful, beautiful imagery, lots and lots of nudity, but not much in the way of, like, plot or super deep character development or anything like that. And I will note that although Fascination is technically a vampire movie, and is usually described as such, the vampires here are not supernatural vampires. They're kind of more akin to, like, degenerate nobles that have a taste for Satanism and, just subverting societal morals in general, I guess. So the movie is set in 1905, and it opens with this very striking scene in an abattoir where there's some aristocratic women, and they kind of go there to drink ox blood because that's kind of like the go-to cure for anemia. Makes sense, right? You're anemic, so just go to the slaughterhouse and chug some blood. It'll fix you right up. So it's really kind of cool because, like, the juxtaposition of these very prim, like, society ladies with their spotless white dresses standing in the middle of all these, like, hanging carcasses and just blood and gore streaked floors is really, really effective. Like, it kind of foreshadows, events to come, and also sort of highlights the whole beauty-death dichotomy, which is sort of one of the main themes of the story. So after that, we then shift to, like, a gang of criminals who are arguing over dividing this chest full of gold coins that they've stolen from someplace. Now, the seeming leader of the gang is a dude named Mark, who I thought sort of resembled what would happen if, like, 80s era Sting and 80s era Simon Le Bon from Duran Duran got stuck in the Brundlefly machine. Like, there was another, I feel like the dude from General Public / English Beat was in there too, maybe. So all three of them in the Brundlefly machine. That's what this dude looks like. That's what you reminded me of. So he's very obviously trying to convince the other gang members that the money will totally be safe with him, you guys. I will very, very fairly divide it all up equitably at a later time. Yes, sirree, Bob. Now, the other thieves are not that dumb, though. They are kind of dumb, but they're not that dumb. And they see through his bullshit. Though, it does seem that Mark kind of gets the drop on them and then takes off running with the money anyway. Now, the one female member of the gang, who I don't remember if she's ever named, actually, she catches up to him and tries to get him to see reason by flashing her titties at him, because why not? I mean, it might work. But he just kind of, like, just laughs and laughs and laughs at her in a way that makes him look like a gigantic jackwagon, honestly, because she's just like, well, gee, I was all confident, and now you're, like, laughing at my boobs, and I'll just put him back then. You know what I mean? It's kind of that. It's pretty funny. So the long and short of it is that he manages to escape, and he stumbles across in the countryside what appears to be an abandoned chateau, where he figures he can hole up until nightfall, and then I think his plan is that he's going to sneak out under cover of darkness so the other gang members can't see him, and get a train to London before they know what's happened. So he goes inside, and at first the manor house does appear to be empty, although you will note that, like, you see two people in a window, but I don't know if it's not real clear like if he sees that or not. But soon enough, when he's inside, he finds two impossibly gorgeous women in this house. Their names are Eva and Elizabeth. One of them claims to be a chambermaid, and the other one says that she's a companion to the Marchioness who lives in the chateau. So the Marchioness and her retinue, I'm assuming, will be returning in a day or two, they say, but they've kind of come ahead of everybody to get the house ready for them. Now, Mark isn't entirely sure he believes this story, and he kind of starts low-key bullying them. Like, he's got a revolver, so he threatens them with that. They act as though they're scared of him at first, but it's still pretty clear that they have some weird shit going on that they're not telling him. So he basically says he's only going to stay until dark, and then he'll leave, and then he locks them in their room. But dumbass Mark didn't realize that, they live there, pretty much, and it's like, so they have a spare key. So they're kind of giggling to themselves, and they go get the spare key, which is in the dresser in the room that he locked them in. And then they proceed to have sex in a pretty extended and honestly kind of fucking hot scene. You know what I mean? It's there's a lot of nudity, like I said, and there's a lot of sex in this. It's not like straight on porn, but it's like there is just like a lot of nudity and sex in it. Now, meanwhile, while that's going on, Mark is in the parlor running these gold coins that he stole through his fingers like he's fucking Scrooge McDuck or something. And then Eva kind of sneaks up behind him. Now, the two women who had previously pretended to be terrified of this big bad criminal are now pretty openly mocking him, even while he's pointing a gun at them. They even offer to let him rape them. They're like, hey, we'll let you rape us if you want, and all this other kind of stuff, but they're obviously like being sarcastic, and they just generally act like really, really sketchy weirdos. They also reveal that they have like this secret little statue thing mounted on the wall that kind of opens up like it's hinged, and there's two daggers inside, which they take out and start brandishing at Mark. Now at this point, Eva, very seductively, lures Mark into the next room, and they have sex on the rug, like in front of the fireplace. Now, Elizabeth says that she's okay with this, but she's obviously jealous, probably because she's in a relationship with Eva also, and because she's apparently starting to catch feels for Mark, even though he's a condescending douchebag. Now, while him and Eva are in the room banging away, Elizabeth sneaks in there. Just like, wow, they must really be going at it, because she was like not quiet or subtle or anything. Like, they don't even see her. It's pretty funny. But she sneaks in and like takes his gun. Although he gets it back almost immediately after this, so I'm not really sure what purpose that served. Now, meanwhile, the other criminals in the gang are outside and have twigged onto the fact that Mark is hiding out in the chateau, which because it's like the only building around for miles and miles. So they start shooting at the place, which both Eva and Elizabeth find very exciting, though Mark is understandably a bit more concerned that he's being shot at. So while Mark is actually kind of preoccupied with shooting back at his former gang members, Eva grabs the box of gold coins, like behind his back, and goes outside to hand it over to the thieves. She tells them, oh, Mark wants you to just take the money and go away. Now, Mark is absolutely livid as he watches this, but there isn't, a hell of a lot he can do about it since the thieves are all armed, you know what I mean? Now, the gang doesn't trust Eva and think that, that Mark took a bunch of money out of the box, so they want to count it. So she offers, actually, to accompany them to this stable that's off on the ground somewhere where they can count the money in peace and not be disturbed. So two of the guys start counting the money. And then a third guy, and the one woman thief, the titty lady from before, who is actually this third guy's wife, they take Eva into the back. Now, the guy says that Eva should give his wife her dress for some reason. I guess he figures that she can sneak back into the house without getting shot because Elizabeth and Mark will think it's Eva because she's wearing her clothes and she also has blonde hair. But the gang has the money now, so why would they need to get back in the house anyway? Like, that didn't make any sense to me. But regardless of the pointlessness of this exercise, Eva pretty gamely gets naked. She's like, okay, here's my dress. And while she's doing that, very slowly, sensuously taking her clothes off, the guy is very vigorously molesting his wife's ample bosom. And he's like looking Eva like dead in the eyes while he's doing it. And she is too. Like, they're both looking at him like, it's pretty weird. So after the wife puts on Eva's clothes, she heads back toward the house, and she tells the two counting guys on the way out that it's like, oh, my husband, whatever the fuck his name was, he wanted Eva, and she's apparently okay with this because, open relationship or whatever the fuck. So in one of the stalls, Eva kind of lays back on this coat and lets the guy have sex with her, but in the middle of the festivities, she stabs the shit out of him with a dagger that she has concealed in the hay. So after that guy's dead, in a pretty over-the-top death scene, which I thought was kind of funny, she puts on this black cloak that's open in the front, so, her glorious boobies show, because she's naked under the cloak. And she grabs a very convenient scythe, which is right there, and she slices open the necks of the two other thieves, like the guys that were counting the money. And then she makes her way back to the house, where the female thief is just kind of wandering around outside. Like, she didn't even seem like she's trying that hard to get in. But I don't know what the plan was. But she actually, scythes that woman, too, and then dumps her body in the moat. I think it falls in a boat, though. But, there was a boat, drifting under there. But she, knocks her off the bridge. So at varying times during all of these shenanigans, Eva and Elizabeth have told Mark that he should probably leave before it gets dark because they're expecting guests, and Mark probably doesn't want to be around when they get there. Now, he seems really intrigued by this and asks them multiple times who exactly they're expecting to show up, but pretty much all Elizabeth will tell him is death. That's who's showing up. Sounds like a party, right? And the guests do indeed soon begin to arrive. The first to show up is the Marchioness herself. I'm led to assume her name is Helene. And she seems kind of amused by Mark's presence. Again, not scared of him at all, even though he's supposedly a big bad criminal with a gun. Now, after nightfall, a bunch of other, it's not really a bunch, it's 4 or 5, other kind of aristocratic women arrive at the chateau. And it's pretty clear that these ladies are not here for a book club. I mean, unless the book is the Satanic Bible or the Necronomicon or something like that. Now, at first, the whole party, the whole gathering, seems like kind of a lark, Ladies and Mark are drinking, as you do. They put some music on the little old-fashioned record player, and they're dancing. It all appears pretty harmless. Now, the women tell him, the real action doesn't start until midnight, and he's interested to see what's going to happen, because, honestly, all the stuff that he's heard, up to this point, he's kind of a dim bulb who's not picking up on really, really obvious red flags. So they play a game of Blind Man's Buff, and after Mark correctly identifies Helene, despite him having the blindfold on, he says, his prize or whatever is that for 15 minutes, Helene has to do everything he says. Because she's been, very imperious, like I said. So she's a good sport about it. She agrees and accompanies him to another room. Now, I know what you're thinking, because I'm sitting there going, ooh, this is going to be some fucked up shit. There's going to be some weird shit happening. Because he can, have her do whatever he wants her to do. But man, Mark is really a boring bag of piss, I have to say. He doesn't come up with anything all that titillating or creative or anything. He basically just asks her to undress, which she does. I mean, and she doesn't even get totally naked. She's just wearing a corset and pantaloons or something like that. I guess that actress didn't have nudity in her contract, unlike most of the other actresses in this movie. And then he threatens to burn her with his cigar, but he doesn't. And then he laughs really hard because she didn't flinch, when he threatened to do, he was whoa, you know what I mean? Now, I gotta say, Helene seems also highly disappointed at Mark's lack of imagination. It's you could have asked me to do literally anything, and that was all you could come up with? Lame. So basically she's hey, look, your 15 minutes are up, it's almost midnight, and now it's our turn. I will say, though, don't get too stoked about seeing Mark get tortured and sacrificed. I mean, I admit I was woohoo. But because what happens is that Elizabeth, as I mentioned earlier, has kind of sort of fallen for the dude and decides she's going to save him, from his ostensible fate. So she takes him out to the stable to hide, and then she tells him that all of the women there are part of this blood-drinking cult who sacrifice a male victim on this day every year. They do the gathering and whatever. They don't need, like I said, they're not supernatural vampires. They don't need to drink blood to survive or anything like that. They're just really into it, and they seem to get off on killing their perceived inferiors, I guess. So, I guess it's good to have hobbies. Now, after the two of them in the stable are discovered by Eva, Elizabeth actually shoots her. That's her former girlfriend. Perhaps to save Mark, perhaps because she's mad that Mark fucked Eva but turned Elizabeth down. Perhaps a little bit of both. And then she weirdly has a change of heart, decides she doesn't love Mark after all, and stabs the shit out of him. I mean, I sort of liked that Elizabeth was kind of set up as having doubts about this whole sacrifice thing, so that the audience would think that maybe she'd grown a conscience and she didn't really want to do this anymore. But nope, she's just as crazy, if not more, than the rest of them. I was under the impression, in fact, that she only pretended to save Mark so she could have his delicious murder all to herself. Now, at the same time, Eva, who has been shot, like I said, but is still alive, so she's stumbling back toward the chateau. But all the other women, who have since changed into very sheer robes of varying autumnal colors, they're not all the same color, they're all like orange, red, brown, stuff like that. They basically fall on her and start drinking her blood. Like, it doesn't really seem to matter to them that this is another fellow member of the vampire sex cult. They're like, hey, free blood's free blood, right? We're not going to turn it down. So it's like they just jump on her and just like start eating, you know? So Helene comes out and tries to tell them to, you know, have some dignity for fuck's sake. And after taking a few more slurps out of her, they kind of sheepishly climb off of her corpse and shuffle back inside the house. So Elizabeth then returns to the house and tells Helene that Eva actually killed Mark. So Elizabeth was then obliged to shoot her, which is obviously not what happened. Now Helene evidently buys this and also thinks it's no big. Because basically all she says is that Elizabeth looks beautiful with Mark's blood on her mouth, and then the movie freeze frames, and then the credits roll. So as I mentioned, this is really not a scare-a-minute horror movie by any means. It's very languidly paced, and though there is some blood, it's not over-the-top gory. Obviously the eroticism in it is very pronounced, but it's not quite as exploitative, I guess, as some other movies from this era. It's kind of more artistically done. But I'm going to say, like, the movie as a whole has this sort of, like, hypnotic power to it. It looks gothic as all get out. The compositions, like the shot compositions, are really painterly. They seem like paintings. And it almost creates this sort of surreal, like, fairy tale, like, vibe. It actually reminded me pretty strongly of Daughters of Darkness from 1971, especially in its kind of more dreamlike aura and its focus on decadent nobility rather than, you know, supernatural creatures, like strictly supernatural. So if you like Daughters of Darkness, you would probably dig this as well, because it's along the same lines. So, you know, obviously Fascination is definitely not going to be for all tastes, you know, because it's like I said, it's a very languorous pace, and it doesn't have a super, super strong plot. Like I said, it's not real action focused, and it might test some people's patience. Like, people might think it was boring. But I'm going to say, if you're interested in like European surrealist, erotic, or gothic horror from this time period, and also if you're new to Jean Rollin's work, this is a good one to start with to see if you vibe with his style, because this is pretty much like one of his best regarded ones. Well, that will do it for this review. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember, like, share, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys again on the next one. Bye.